Hello and welcome back to the garden, and you join me in this new border that I started about 2 months ago. It was a very small stumpy area at the beginning of the border. It has tiarellas and grasses and ferns and a few offcuts of tree limbs from a tree that came down, be about 4 years ago now. But I saved all of the sections because I knew that I wanted to do this at some point in the future. But the first job before I can actually start extending this border is one, to take out all of the weeds, and I've been doing that over the last few days, and two, to remove all of the bulbs. Got quite a lot of bulbs running in this front section. I'm going to take them out, dig them up, take them out, because I want to add ferns and eventually brunnera along the front of here, which matches the other shade borders which are behind the camera that you can't actually see from this view. So I'll have the brunnera, the ferns, but then I have quite a few shrubs that I want to add. And I just want to start building up this border because I think it's probably the last time that I'll get to add any plants in the ground before winter hits. So first job, dig up the bulbs. That's all of the bulbs dug up. Did I mention it's very windy today again? Hopefully this sounds okay. They're mainly snowdrops and daffodils, but I'll put those to one side because I'm going to add them back. But the next thing that I want to do is to extend this area with more sections from the tree limb. Just like when you're adding perennials in the garden, I think it always looks good when you add in odd numbers. It just aesthetically looks good. So I'm going from a 3 in this section to a 5. Now these limbs are quite heavy, so I'll be rolling them rather than lifting them. And if they don't look right at the first attempt, I will fiddle with them until they do. I've decided to add more of these offcuts to link the two sections of this big border together. So I've got the 5 at the far end, and I'm just playing around with them here. Don't know whether to add a 5 or a 3. You'll see in a few minutes what it's going to end up like. So it's the next day. It got quite wet and quite windy, so I had to give up yesterday. But I did manage to get all of these in position. I've buried them in the soil because obviously it's quite a gradient here and they would fall over. So I'm quite pleased with how it all looks. But now it's the exciting time to add the plants. And the first plant that I'm going to add is a rhododendron that I dug up from over on the other side of one of the shade borders, because it was in the wrong position, because next year I want to extend a drift of astilbes over there. So I've dug it out. It's an ideal plant for this position. Just gets enough light to hopefully flower, but I'm not planting it for the flowers. This particular rhododendron is for the leaf, or for the leaves. If I can get it out of this wheelbarrow because it's quite heavy. Oh. Boy, it doesn't look heavy, but it's incredibly heavy. And this particular one is called molten gold. And you plant this not so much for the flowers, which are a lilac, pinky lilac-y colour, but more for the leaf colour. Because in this semi-shaded spot, it will really stand out. So I've prepared the planting hole. I'm not adding anything to it, because here there's so much leaf mould from all of the years of the leaves falling and breaking down that it's lovely soil for rhododendrons. Now I'm really fortunate to be able to add a few substantial shrubs into this border. It doesn't often work out like that when you have to start with small ones, but I was lucky that I had 2 that I could relocate. Now obviously to grow rhododendrons you need acidic soil, which I have. And I've got years of leaf mould here as well, which helps to give that soil condition. But if you don't have acidic soil, you could plant them in a raised bed with ericaceous compost, which you can buy, or you could grow them in a pot. They do well in a pot as long as they're kept well watered. So that's the first rhododendron, but I've got a few more to add, so let me go and get those. So the second plant is another one that I've dug out from elsewhere. And this one is the same as the first rhododendron, molten gold. But you would never think it because the variegated leaves, they're very slight, the variation on them. Very little cream in them. But that's because it's been planted under an evergreen, wasn't getting enough light or moisture. So hopefully in this new spot under these deciduous trees, where it'll receive light for about 6 months of the year, it should, all of the new leaves colour up a lot better. And I'll just need to keep it well watered again for the next couple of months. I don't think I mentioned that these particular rhododendrons can grow anything from 3 feet up to 5 feet, depending on the positioning of them and whether they like the spot that you've planted them in. So the next plants to add are more rhododendrons. And this is a variety which is new to me, haven't grown this one before, and it's called black gold. Now it's a small shrub, grows to about 2 to 3 feet in height, but it's spectacular. The leaves are just something else. I've never seen a rhododendron as bright as this one. Gorgeous yellow golden leaves edged around with green. Does flower, pink, lilac pink flowers in the summer, but I'm not growing it for that. I'm growing it for this gorgeous leaf colour. And I think around these stumps, it'll really brighten up this semi-shaded spot. So that's rhododendron black gold. Based on past experience, I always dig the holes first, position the plants in them before I plant them. I don't know how many times I've planted things and thought, I don't like that position, and ended up having to move them. The next group of plants I want to add are all of these Dryopteris, and I'm very embarrassed to say they've been sitting in these trays of water for several months now. I dug them out of the new shade border over the far side there. Now the first fern that I'm adding is the Dryopteris cristata, the king. And this, in my climate, can often stay evergreen in the winter time. And I think it'll look good in between all of these sections of tree limbs, or tree stumps if you want to call them that. And the botanists really did us a favour when they named these Dryopteris ferns, because the majority of them love dry, as in Dryopteris, semi-shade to full shade spots in the garden. This particular one, it's been on a very dry spot on the other side and it's coped well. But obviously when you first plant them, they will need to be watered. It takes them a while, obviously, to get established, probably over a year to 2 years, to get a nice size variety like this one, or specimen like this one. But once it is established, I won't never water it again. Now this swoop around the front of this border will consist of 2 plants. One, the Dryopteris, Felix Mass, or Felix Mass, however you pronounce it. And then the second part of the swoop, which will not be till next year, is the Brunnera in front of the ferns. Now these Dryopteris felix mass in my climate can stay often evergreen right throughout the winter. Again, Dryopteris are like dry conditions, but until they're established, you'll need to keep them watered. And these have been sitting in the trays, as I said, for a couple of months. They grow anything from 2 to 3 feet in height and spread. The cristata, that is a taller variety, that can grow anything from 3 to 5 feet. But I think around this section it will give me something permanent and evergreen through the winter months. I thought it was too good to be true. Big slab of sandstone to the top of the quarry. I get used to it. And it's bringing up tree roots. More hard work. Another lovely piece of stone to use. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see this because it's late in the afternoon, but I've dug out another one of these molten gold rhododendrons because it had outgrown its spot, and it was pretty much wasted here because there's so many other shrubs around it. So I'm going to take this to the new woodland border. So it's a few days later, and in those few days the trees have reached that autumn peak in colour. Not quite sure how much you can see from that camera angle, but the oranges and the reds and yellows and browns, stunning. I love this time of year, but I say that about every season. Anyhow, back to the planting. Originally the plan for this long border was to add mixed shrubs, but in the last few days I've changed my mind. And I think sometimes when you're starting something new, it's well worthwhile just to hit the pause button, look at what you've done so far, and just, is it what I really wanted at the end of the day? And I decided I wanted to keep the planting to rhododendrons, but using these variegated rhododendrons. So I'm adding more of these. Now originally these were for the other side, because even though these are informal woodland borders, I still like some symmetry. But I will just have to buy some more probably next year now. So I've moved to about 2/3 down this new border now, and the last plant to add is this one that I dug out a couple of nights ago, and it is another rhododendron, variegated rhododendron, and it's the same as the other two big ones that I dug out, molten gold. And if you want to move rhododendrons, they are quite easy to move. They're very shallow rooted, so you just need to make sure that you obviously try and dig out a big root ball, but you don't have to go very deep because all of the fibrous roots are pretty much near the surface. So this one here, I've prepared a planting hole. And again, one thing about adding these lovely extra large rhododendrons, you get that established feeling pretty quickly. You don't want to plant them too deep, just the same depth as what they were originally planted in the ground. Leaves are now falling pretty steadily. Won't be long before the trees are bare, but I thought I'd end with a quick update on how far I've got in this new border. I've added the 3 Dryopteris felix mass ferns in the front. Behind that, one of the larger shrubs that I dug out of the shade borders. This is the molten gold rhododendron with lovely cream veining and blotching through the leaves. behind that I added the new tree stumps with the fern Dryopteris cristata the king, and I've put a few extra ferns in either side that I had. Then you have these lovely rhododendrons in front of those, and this is the black gold, and it is very much a yellow golden leaf edged with green. Stunning for a shaded spot. Let me just come out of here now and I'll take you down the steps. So all of these grasses down the side of the steps, these are pheasant's tail grass, which is the Anamenthala lesionia. And you can see where they've all self-seeded around underneath. If you didn't want them to do that, you would have to cut the seed heads off in early autumn. Then I've got more of the rhododendrons, the black gold here. And then walking down, I have the largest specimen of the molten gold rhododendron. And all of these give off so much brightness in what was quite a semi-shaded spot. But the plan for the future is to continue down these borders. I'll take you down to the bottom. You can see this where I ended all of the weeding. All of this hedging needs to be finished off. Lots more weeding. It's the pond down there, which is pretty much getting ready to be put to bed for the winter. The rhododendron garden there, which again is winding down now. And then on this side is the second border, and this is full of weeds. Lovely stonework along this side, all needs to be exposed. And then this whole border, which is now full of weeds with the exception of the pheasant's tail grass, that will be worked on over the winter. But at least now I have made some progress with this new border. Look at the colours on these trees. One good thing about adding all of these tree stumps is I have somewhere to sit when I need it. But that's it for today. In the next couple of videos, I'll be back working in the woodland borders here, adding spring bulbs, more ferns and more perennials. But I'd just like to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.